Together, I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker, and thank you so much for joining us here on our Saturday morning forum. We have a great deal of content for you today. We want to thank Impact Network for bringing us to you and you to us. We also want to thank those of you that are following us on our Facebook page. If you're doing so, be sure to like our page. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube Live, please be sure to subscribe to our page so that you can get up-to-date information about all that our organization is producing. And speaking of that, mark your calendar right away for our annual convention, which is being held in person in Chicago from June 18th to June 22nd. We're going to kick off our annual convention on June 18th right here at headquarters, with a focus on honoring the class of 2022, the class of 2021, as well as the class of 2020. The second day of our kickoff is actually going to be a gospel concert where we will also honor our fathers on Father's Day. In order to secure your place in this convention, all that we ask you to do is to visit rainbowpush.org and register. Don't touch that dial, but we also want you to recognize that we absolutely cannot do this without you. We need your financial support, and we've made it easy for you to give. All you have to do is pick up your cell phone and text the word PUSH to 41444. Text PUSH to 41444. And if you prefer, you can pick up your cell phone right now and put it to the screen and take a picture of the QR code and donate right on the spot. And lastly, for those of you that prefer, you can go right to our webpage, rainbowpush.org, and click on the button that says donate, again, to give of your financial resources. And we intend to do everything that we have been doing to give back to you. Coming up, you can also expect to hear from Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, who will bring you due process. The push is on. Keep hope alive.
Good morning. Welcome to this week's Saturday Morning Forum. In the wake of the mass shooting at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, this week has been consumed with the tragic killing of innocent children and the teachers who try to protect them in yet another school shooting in America. The discussions about what happened on Tuesday run the spectrum, from extreme criticism of law enforcement response and actions to the assignment of blame as another isolated incident of a troubled individual committing an act of violence that cannot be completely regulated by policy. Whatever frame you may have, what is clear is that another incident in the long saga of mass killings in this country has visited our public psyche. So we come together this morning to channel our collective grief and outrage into focused action that will move beyond obligatory condolences and hopeful platitudes. We come together to recommit to doing the hard work of justice, not just with gun safety and reasonable gun control, but with voting rights, women's rights, police reform, education and technology policy, closing the racial wealth gap and expanding opportunity for all of us. But all of us must work together. That is why you should make plans to join us for the Rainbow Push Coalition International Convention, June 18th through 22nd here in Chicago. Registration is free, so go to rainbowpush.org to sign up and join us in the fight for opportunity and justice for all. In a few minutes, I will be back with this week's due process. I will talk about the President's executive order on police reform, how the economy is affecting job gains in the Black community, and updates on the fight for voter protection, banking, and more. Stay tuned for Due Process, and thank you for being a part of the Saturday Morning Forum.
Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., the Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition West Coast Silicon Valley Office Push Tech Programs under the leadership of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. And I am here particularly at this moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all of you that participated in our 7th annual Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit. Wow, it was mind-blowing. It was inspirational, informational. It was empowering. It was equipping. It was a very special conference, and we are so grateful for all of you that attended, for all of you that supported, for all of you that shared in whatever ways that you did. We're going to spend several weeks over the summer just recapping some of the wonderful moments that we had throughout the entire summit. It really was amazing. And I'm so thankful for Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, our leader, for his vision to take on the task of ensuring that diversity, equity, and inclusion were a part of the ecosystem of technology. And over these years, we've seen some progress. We've seen some paths be open. We've seen some opportunities come to pass. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. But our conference was able to take a pause and celebrate some wonderful people and some wonderful things that have evolved, even the wonderful ecosystem now that is becoming a part of our world, whether it be the metaverse or NFTs or cryptocurrency. We were able to include all of that in our conference. We want to encourage you to go back and watch. We want to encourage you to follow us on social media, RPC Push Tech. We want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube page where you'll see snippets and clips. We also want to spend this time thanking our amazing sponsors, all of you wonderful companies that have come alongside this work with Reverend Jackson. Thank you to Meta, formerly known as Facebook, our premier sponsor. Thank you to Airbnb, Apple, Comcast, Infoblox, Wells Fargo. Thank you to Siebert Williams. Thank you to the Kapoor Center and MFR Securities. Thank you to HPE, Salesforce, and Google. Thank you to our team. Thank you to our event manager, Deanna Roberts of DR Roberts Management. Thank you to all of our Push Tech staff that made it possible to pull off such a wonderful experience. Thanks to HQ and all of those that have lended their talents to us to make the event as wonderful as it has been. And we want to pause again because there were some moments that we had for the opening night Keep Hope Alive reception that were extraordinary. We want to thank again Wells Fargo for opening your doors for us to have a hybrid event at your facility. We were able to have some of our honorees, few of our sponsors and special guests right there in the room as we were virtually sharing with the rest of the world. We were able to be there in that space. So thank you, Wells Fargo. And of course, we honored one of their very own, one of the jewels of the company. And we want to just hear some of the messages that came from the honorees that night. It really touched our hearts and inspired us. Really some powerful words about the impact of Reverend Jackson. And so we want to hear those messages again. We thank Roy Austin of Facebook/Meta. He wasn't able to be there, but he shared his message. But there in the house, we were able to hear from Wells Fargo's very own Denise Miles. We were able to hear from the game changer entrepreneur from Clio Capital extraordinaire, Miss Sarah Kuntz. And we were able to hear from the legendary Regina Jackson as she rides into the sunset, retiring awfully young, but having done so many amazing things at the East Oakland Youth Development Center. Their messages touched us all, inspired us all. We want to share them again with you. So here we are, our Keep Hope Alive reception. Check it out and be blessed.
Wells Fargo is a proud and long-standing sponsor of Rainbow Push Coalition since 2001. One of the women we are here to honor today has been a huge part of this. We've been investing in key events, conferences like these that elevate topics related to digital equity, financial education, tax policy and infrastructure, as well as best practices among leaders who continuously advocate for social justice. And I'm just gonna move this for a bit because I feel that's my face. All right, so I wanna start a bit by introducing myself and why it's important for me personally and professionally to be here today. I grew up in a very non-traditional family in a very conservative and traditional environment. My parents at the time were radicals. They fought for social justice at a time where it wasn't popular. It wasn't always safe, and they ingrained these principles in me. As a young queer person growing up in this very conservative environment with a father with a disability, with a mother who emigrated to the US in the 60s, this created a sense of me of being on the outside and really formed my worldview. And has played a huge part in my evolution into the role I'm in today. And then I went to school to become an opera singer, which Gigi Dixon did as well, mind you. Didn't work out for either of us. That's another story. And I want to talk about what came out of that for me. So there was a realization that one, I was not cut out to be a professional musician. That is a hard life. And two, I needed to hustle and find a way to support myself now that scholarships and stipends were over. I had no tangible skills. So I got a job at a help desk in the early 90s. Is your computer plugged in? Is your computer turned on? That sort of support. And based on my aptitude, my grit, my competencies, I'm not talking about skills or experience, I turned myself into a technologist. I basically got somebody to take a chance on me, to teach me some very basic skills. I was curious, I was ambitious, and 25 years later, I have been a CIO, a CTO, and I entered this field at a time where there were virtually no women, no people of color, it was white men. And this whole experience and worldview of coming from the outside, being in a place really influenced the direction that I took my career. So I got a job. This is a 25-year career. And here's some of what I've learned really about being in the tech world. And it was so interesting listening to that video from 6 years ago, because it's still, sadly, pretty much the same state. So one of the things that I've learned is a meritocracy with conditions is not a meritocracy. We talk about technology being a meritocracy, but there are so many conditions to access that field. There are still far too many barriers, too much friction in accessing technology roles, and this has to change. Wells Fargo is committed to making this change and knows it has to change. And I said, I know from personal experience and aptitude, a desire to learn, and basic communication and logic can be the entry point to a field, to a role in technology. And the reality is that the shelf life of any given technology is 2 years. So it doesn't matter what you went to school for. You've got to constantly be learning. And I want everyone to hear this. You don't need a 4-year computer science degree to have a meaningful career in technology. It is important that we tell this to our children, to our communities. In addition, technology is fundamentally changing. Computer science degrees aren't required to design content. Specific technologies can be learned on the job. We prove that every day. I proved that. And consumers are fundamentally changing. So the creators also need to change. Effective creators must fundamentally know the communities for whom they are creating. This means that technology organizations really need to look like the consumers, who are increasingly diverse. Lived experience matters for effective product design. This is a business imperative. It's not just the right thing to do, and I want to repeat that. It is a business imperative. If your employees do not have lived experience and understand the consumers for who you are designing, you will not win in the marketplace. Our lived experiences inform our interactions with and applications of technology in emerging fields like AI, virtual reality, how we think about leveraging quantum computing, organizations that prioritize a diversity of lived experience and backgrounds, know their markets better, and have more effective ideas for satisfying an increasingly diverse marketplace. Providing employees an environment in which credible challenge is also encouraged and trial and error rewarded, not only engages people, but also leads to organizational growth during periods of transformation. Why? Because diversity in people leads to diversity in ideas and fuels innovation and transformation. Centering innovation and diversity and culture in authentic inclusion inspires people to push beyond existing boundaries. So to this end, at Wells Fargo, we are looking at removing degree requirements in many of our roles, committing to programs like 110, Dream Core Tech, ITSMF, and other professional organizations and networks that help us open our talent aperture and shift our talent pipeline. And I am so excited now that I have met Reverend Bryant about what we can do with Push Tech going forward. Okay, so now I'm very honored to introduce by way of video, Miss Gigi Dixon, Executive Vice President and Head of External Engagement for Wells Fargo. What I've learned from Gigi is that civic responsibility is one that she takes to heart. Earning trust and reputation management go hand in hand, personally and professionally. And last but not least, the power of your voice should never be underestimated. And aside from leading Wells Fargo's strategic partnerships, she has a long and deep family history with Reverend Jackson, who I thought was from Chicago, but she corrected me, Greensville, South Carolina, where she met him when she was 10 years old. One of the most exciting things about Gigi's career is the opportunity to work with legends and national treasures like Reverend Jackson. Gigi wishes she could be here in person, but she's on her way to Baltimore for an NAACP board meeting. So I also just have to do a real quick shout out to Miss Denise Miles, who you're going to hear about on the video, but she is a Wells Fargo treasure. And we're so excited to be here today. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gigi Dixon, Executive Vice President and Head of External Engagement for Wells Fargo. I would like to extend greetings to my friends and colleagues who are joining the 6th Annual Push Tech Summit, a rainbow push movement to improve economic justice, equity, and inclusion in the technology sector. Thank you, Reverend Jackson and Dr. Joseph Bryant, for creating this platform for social change. And a special thank you, Reverend Jackson, for helping all of us keep hope alive through your lifelong commitment to leadership, service, civil rights, human rights, economic parity, and social justice. Reverend, you are a beacon of hope. I joined you this evening to acknowledge and congratulate my colleague who is receiving special recognition for her dedication to community service. Denise Miles is an amazing leader, a business professional and woman of faith who I came to know as a member of my team, managing national advocacy relationships, including Wells Fargo's strategic partnership with Rainbow Push and the 1,000 Churches Connected program. Over her years of service to Wells Fargo, Denise has continued to advance in her career, but she has never stopped supporting the work that she helped to build when she was on my team managing those strategic national relationships funded by the Wells Fargo Foundation. Denise is one of the most talented, creative, and entrepreneurial colleagues I've worked with at during my Wells Fargo career. And she's very results and outcome oriented. That's why I was more than pleased when I heard she was receiving the Push Tech 2022 Community Impact Award. Denise consistently delivers excellence in her work and in the community. She is amazing and worthy of this honor. Denise, congratulations. I do not know anyone more passionate about true impact and real outcomes in business, philanthropy, community, and program execution than you. You embody the spirit of partnership, support, and shared success that defines the way Wells Fargo engages our stakeholders like Rainbow Push and in our communities where we live and work. Thank you, Dr. Bryant and Reverend Jackson, for bestowing this honor to Denise. We're proud of her and grateful for your partnership.
The Community Impact Award. The recipient has significantly utilized their role, position, and personal commitment, resulting in an extraordinary amount of powerful and productive community impact that has yielded a continuous flow of residual benefits for the greater good. Ms. Denise Miles, will you please come up and receive your Community Impact Award? Wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
let me take this mask off and just say a few words. So let me bring this down a little bit. So I just wanted to say, first of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, Dr. Bryant, John Mitchell, who I'm sure is watching as well, the Rainbow Push and Citizens Education Fund family for selecting me as a recipient for the Community Impact Award. I have to be honest, my Filipino parents, they kind of raised me with the attitude of just do it, just do your job and do it well. So I feel very, very undeserving and just truly humbled. I know my mom couldn't be here in person, but I know she's watching. So hi, Mom. And she's proud to see me receive this award. So thank you so much. I want to congratulate my fellow awardees, Mr. Roy Austin, Ms. Sarah Kunst, Ms. Regina Jackson. So honored to just be among this powerful group of people. So I also want to just take the time to also recognize Deanna Roberts, who is the CEO and founder of DR Roberts Event Management, for bringing this event together. Thank you, Deanna. She rearranged this all virtual event to a hybrid event in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So thank you, Deanna and team. We definitely appreciate it. In my 20+ year career, and I promise I'll be fast because I can hear the music already going to pull me off the stage. Yes, so in my 20+ career, I started when I was 12. Okay, no, I've had the privilege of having various roles in government in corporate America, where I was given the opportunity to build programs that serve the community. It's a responsibility that I've taken very seriously, and it had not been for wonderful supportive managers and mentors like Gigi Dixon, like Tally Bray, like San Francisco Mayor Willie L. Brown Jr., like Brenda Wright, like my current manager, Jason Sturl, who truly believes in me and truly allows me to execute on some of the crazy ideas I wanted to create. I know I would not be standing here with you today. I'm so thankful for an amazing family, my church family, Wells Fargo colleagues and friends that are here with me today. So thank you to them. You all have been just so supportive, so encouraging, so uplifting. Several are joining virtually. Again, many of you are here in the room, as you probably heard, and thank you so much. I'm truly blessed to have a wonderful, loving husband, very supportive, very handsome on top of that, who is my best friend, my rock, sounding board. We'll be celebrating our 15-year anniversary next month. So love and appreciate you, Franklin Miles. The last thing I'll mention is I miss Reverend Jackson being here, here in the Bay Area. There isn't a Push Tech Summit that I can remember he missed. It was always his welcome remarks and his words of wisdom that fired up the crowd. But I do know he's with us watching this live broadcast. Hi, Reverend Jackson, we miss you. For me, so how many of you have a fond experience or memory of Reverend Jackson, whether it was meeting him for the first time or hearing his name and learning about his lifetime of advocacy for civil rights and economic empowerment? Raise your hand. Yeah, me too. So for me, I was a freshman in high school. It was in Mrs. Norris's English class when she began to tell us about the great Jesse Jackson. Months prior, my freshman year, we had lost my father to a sudden heart attack. He was only 45 years old. Both my grandparents were still living, and it was the first time I had experienced death. I remember just being devastated and depressed because my father meant the world to me. But it was that class, Mrs. Norris asked the students to repeat after her Reverend Jackson's famous 3 words that helped change my 14-year-old mindset that day. I am somebody. She said, say it again. And I said, I am somebody. And she said, say it again. And the louder the class got, and each time I said it, a comforting feeling of my father telling me, you are somebody, stayed with me and just resonated that entire day. So thank you, Reverend Jackson, for the impact you had, not only to this little 14-year-old back then, but now and how you are continuing to impact the entire world and beyond today. Thank you.
Let me express my concern here that today, Rainbow Push wants to coalesce with the Congressional Black Caucus, stating other elements of interest of people. We're facing the most severe battle we face in a century. 246 years of slavery, 246 years of slavery, Emancipation Proclamation. Federal government had to intervene to protect our rights. 20 years it did just that, from states' rights. And Jefferson Davis, all that Jefferson Davis meant to slavery, secession, segregation, sedition, and white supremacy. Now Trump has picked up the mantle of Jefferson Davis and Bilbo. There's a definite counter-revolution in the South now against rights gained to blood and death 40 years ago. The concern now is that we look at fighting for democracy in Ukraine, so they're cutting against democracy at home. The billions there and almost nothing here. We look at the black population in this state, brown and Asian, American blacks running 8,000, American unregistered 35,000, Asian unregistered 16,000, all minorities unregistered 270,000. It's not just a black issue, however. Poverty rate in the state is 19.6%. One of every 5 residents in Louisiana lives in poverty, working poor people. 87,500 of our residents live in poverty, working poverty. Twice more unemployed, unregistered whites, and now blacks, browns, and Asians unregistered. So we find ourselves working poor people. People that have too much, we have almost nothing. Just left Arkansas. There's a sign of things yet to come here. The impact of replacement legislation, de facto racial segregation legislation, and invariably cases of white people in the same class who are more manipulated than blacks are. These schemes. We made progress in 1865. In 1960, the Supreme Court moved to take away our rights. States' rights took over. It took in 1954, 50 years to regain. There's now an attempt to revive the 1896 decision. Supreme Court moved on women's right to choose their option of their bodies. It's a hell of a decision. It's made. Women are grown people. Slavery women didn't have the right to vote in slavery time. So it's called superior, inferior sex. So the white women were too soft on slavery. The blacks were third-class citizens, whites were women were second-class citizens. The right to vote in 1920. White women got the right to vote. 55 years after slavery had ended. We see the movement on whites' rights to vote today. Following strict construction rules, that's what Clarence Thomas and Alito represents, all the way to fought for the end. So has the power to take the right to vote back again, using their schemes to in fact undercut the right to vote. So that's for Louisiana, Arkansas, where people are having to drive 30 miles on where to vote. And the voting is not stationary. It moves from place to place. They may go 30 miles to vote, and then the polling place moves. It's not stationary. Right to vote is under attack. With lawsuit, blood has been cut out through pens and computers. But racial lines are glaring there and they're glaring here. Same patterns taking place across the South today. We must protest and do something about it in a mighty way. Challenge the Supreme Court at every level. Every state must challenge it. Look at the violence. There's too much violence in the country. 13 shot, 10 dead in Buffalo. We need to be disarming those Americans who want to brandish these weapons can bring down airplanes. If they take on the U.S. Congress, they will bring down airplanes. We're waiting for that 10 may be a moment. I think that may be it. They're so angry, they're so confused. Behind the walls are ignorance, fear, hatred, and violence. Ignorance, fear, hatred, and violence. Walls are coming in, always LSU. Now, you black athletes to attract money, prestige, and power. The parents don't have the right to vote. Grandparents don't have the right to vote. The protected right to vote. Remember, Bush wants to get every high school senior. Well, say the diploma in one hand, the voter card in the other. Whereas I used to they're young. They must know what precinct they're in. State reps or state senators are. They must know council, they must know county commissioners. They must have an understanding of the system. Live in politically. Also, they must also learn conflict resolution. Resolve conflict without fighting back in violent ways. The stock market game, they must learn the capital, how to engage in capital development, not by a grant, but by understanding how the stock market works in America. The stock market page is not the wrapping fish, it's a very serious page of work. You come out of high school, you should know that. We should make city colleges free. And it's 2 and 2, you go to city colleges 2 years. You go to colleges 2 years, you cut the student loan debt in half. But that's a piece of our work right now. Getting them to register to vote.
Welcome to this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary. We begin this week with President Joe Biden's executive action to address police reform at the federal level, while the George Floyd Justice in Policing bill continues to languish in the Senate. On Wednesday, the 2-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder at the hands of Minneapolis police officers, the president was joined by members of the Floyd family, members of Congress, and other stakeholders to witness the signing of an important, though limited, executive order. The order purports to, quote, advance effective, accountable policing and criminal justice practices that will build public trust and strengthen public safety, end quote. Some of the key provisions of the order include the establishment of a national database of police misconduct for federal law enforcement agencies. The database will track incidents of officer misconduct at various levels, as well as commendations and awards. The submission of data is not binding on state and local law enforcement agencies, but the agencies are encouraged to submit their data as well. Other key provisions include the strengthening of pattern or practice investigations of police departments, banning the use of chokeholds and carotid restraints unless deadly force is authorized, and the banning of no-knock entries. The order further restricts the transfer of military equipment and requires development of evidence-based implicit bias training for law enforcement officers that includes race, ethnicity, national origin, limited English proficiency, religion, sex, including sexual orientation and gender identity, and disability. Advocates are mindful that the reach of the executive order is only across federal agencies and does not apply to the states where many of the most egregious instances of police misconduct occur. While we acknowledge the administration's efforts, our attention remains focused on the Senate's response in passing the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act right away. Trouble could be on the horizon for Black workers and other workers of color based on economic data. While the Black unemployment rate has returned to pre-pandemic levels of 5.9%, and the employment rate for Blacks stands at 77%, the current shift in monetary policy by the Federal Reserve and the persistent inflation rates of more than 8% are causing worry that the employment stability for underrepresented groups will be impacted. If unemployment rates begin to rise and the cost of borrowing gets more expensive, the economic effects on households that are already finding difficulty making ends meet could be more devastating than during the pandemic. This is partly because the Congress has refused to pass key pieces of economic legislation aimed at supporting vulnerable individuals and families like Build Back Better or renewed investment in pandemic recovery dollars. Additionally, wide discrepancies in state minimum wage levels could make economic sustainability more difficult in states like Texas. 20 states, many in the South, have set the state minimum wage at the current federal minimum wage rate of $7.25 per hour. While some have noted that high demand for skilled workers has driven the wage rate higher because of that demand, a loss of jobs could lead to a downward spiral on wages as workers compete for jobs by agreeing to accept lower salaries to address the lack of household money to cover essential needs. We will continue to track the economic trends and employment data, and we will continue to advocate for policy proposals that help sustain the most vulnerable families and individuals during this time of transition in the U.S. economy. That is why you should go to rainbowpush.org right now and register for this year's Rainbow Push Coalition International Convention, June 18th through 22nd in Chicago. We will be focused on the economic climate and its effect on opportunities for workers, business owners, students, and families here and abroad as we talk about expanding new markets and creating new opportunities after the pandemic. On the access to capital front, Wintrust Financial Corporation finds itself the focus of a federal lawsuit alleging systematic discrimination against Black mortgage borrowers in Illinois. Kathleen Bankhead, who is Black and an attorney, approached Wintrust for mortgage financing in 2020 to purchase a property in a mostly Black neighborhood in Chicago. Bankhead alleges that she was given a higher rate and less favorable terms because of her race. The lawsuit alleges that the data that Wintrust is required to disclose under federal law shows a pattern where white applicants were favored over Black potential borrowers. The suit alleges that Wintrust's policies, practices, and internal algorithms disproportionately benefited white homeowners. The data was required under the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, also known as HMDA, and allegedly showed a uniform nationwide practice of discrimination. This pattern includes charging higher fees and higher rates to Black borrowers than white borrowers. Access to capital concerns persist, and Rainbow Push Coalition will continue to work with federal regulators, legislators, and even litigators to ensure that the cost of banking and borrowing is not more costly for Blacks than other applicants. Stay tuned. A federal judge in Texas has determined that the state of Texas can be sued by the Biden administration over an election law enacted last year that disenfranchises non-English speaking, elderly, and disabled voters. The Department of Justice alleges that the law makes it unreasonably difficult for some voters to cast a ballot by restricting essential means of voter participation such as mail-in voting or the ability to assist persons with disabilities at the polls. SB 1 is the law that was enacted after Democratic state legislators refused to be present to establish a quorum during sessions focused on curtailing voter access after the 2020 presidential election. The law requires strict adherence to mail-in voting procedures and limits the help that persons with disabilities or limited English proficiency can receive. U.S. District Judge Javier Rodriguez ruled that the federal government does have the authority to take the state to court under the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, and that the enactment of the law allegedly does harm to the United States. In the complaint, the Justice Department cited census data to support the basis of its complaint, noting that more than half of the state's voting age residents are from communities of color, and nearly 4 million residents don't speak English fluently. The restrictions on the types of support for voters with language barriers and disabilities are primary issues to be addressed in the suit. We will watch this case and others like it closely and keep you updated on the fight to protect voting rights in America. This month marks the 65th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Give Us the Ballot speech at the prayer pilgrimage for freedom at the Lincoln Memorial in May 1957. On the heels of the 1954 Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education, there was still unfinished business in securing the fundamental right of access to the ballot box for Black Americans. Southern states continued to suppress voter registration and participation, developing ever more creative and sinister ways to deny the sacred expression and right of citizenship for Black people. In many ways, the issues of 65 years ago continue to plague us today, with Southern states devising ever more malicious policies of voter suppression and legal intimidation of voters, while securing for the politically perverse the right to overturn any election result with which the powers that be disagree. The right to vote and the exercise of the right to vote are more clearly in focus for this year's midterm elections. The issues that warrant a serious response from lawmakers continue to receive short shrift from those whose only business is to protect the interest of an emerging ruling class. We must not forget Dr. King's admonition and demands for courageous leadership that will do its part to codify in legislation what the federal courts had established through litigation. We cannot continue the current pace of backsliding politics in America. We must renew the demand, give us the ballot. We want uninhibited, unrestrained access to the ballot box, and we want it now. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. And once again, I want to thank you for joining our International Saturday Morning Forum. I don't want you to forget that you can be a part of the fastest growing social justice army in America by becoming a member with the Rainbow Push Coalition by clicking that tab or going to our site, rainbowpush.org. You know, our annual International Convention is coming up June 18th through the 22nd. And we're focusing on new economic markets. And I personally want to invite you to be a part of it as inflation is hitting our nation almost at the pace of the pandemic. We're paying more as prices are rising and salaries and incomes are lower and lower. And the 2% still maintain control over 99% of the global wealth. We need change, we need relief, and we need remedies and resolution to these critical times. And so I want you to join Reverend Jesse Jackson at this year's convention as we focus on economic justice, social justice, and leveling the playing field. Did you not know that inflation hits Black and brown families harder than any other sector, where rent goes up, mortgages go up, car payments go up, the cost of living goes up, and there lies a critical time of economic survival. If you are concerned about these issues and you want to participate in being a social justice change agent, join us this year, June 18th through the 22nd, here in Chicago. Go to rainbowpush.org and get more information, or call us here in Chicago, 773-FREEDOM on your dial. Don't ever, ever forget, we are keeping hope alive.
History is important. It teaches us valuable lessons, it inspires in us hope, and it shows us patterns whereby we are able to even predict the future. This is why studying Black history and even celebrating Black culture 365 days of the year is so imperative. And so with that in mind, let us go back in time. Hi, I'm Tim Lee, and on This Week in History, this is something we think youth ought to know. On May 24th, 1961, a group of freedom riders were arrested and put in one of the worst jails in Jackson, Mississippi. Do you know who the Freedom Riders were? They were groups of ordinary people, Black and white, young and old, who took to the roads to ride for freedom. They rode buses into the segregated South to challenge the non-enforcement of rulings which made segregation of public buses unconstitutional. Now, segregation is just a big word that means separations of the races. And if we really want to understand what segregation is, we have to go back even farther. Because after slavery, white people were looking at black people and they were saying, look, you used to be our slaves. You used to serve us. You used to be told what to do. Now you can't tell us what to do. You can't socialize with us on an equal basis. This is what we're going to do. Everything is going to be separate. You can't go to the movies with us. You can't go to the same church as us. You can't eat in the same restaurants with us. You can't even sit at the same park bench or drink from the same water fountains as us. Everything is separate. And that was the segregated South. Now, you see, by 1960s, many of these laws had been challenged in the courts by civil rights activists and changed. But the people in the South did not enforce those laws. And this is where the Freedom Riders come in. They were challenging the very fact that these new laws were not being enforced. Now, do you think they were happy about that down in the South? Of course not. And the Freedom Riders were met with violence. They were disrespected. They were terrorized. They were physically beaten. And there was even a time when the angry mobs tried to burn them on the bus alive. On May 24th, 1961, in Jackson, Mississippi, a group of Freedom Riders were arrested at the bus station. They were immediately taken to the worst jail in Jackson, Mississippi, and the people of the South, the people of Mississippi, thought it was over. They thought that no more Freedom Riders would come into Jackson and that their spirits would be squashed. That is not what happened. People from all over America got on buses and started to come to Jackson, Mississippi. And in the next few months, over 400 people were arrested and put in the worst jails in Jackson. Now, what do you think happened as a result of this national unity? What do you think happened since the people, when they were met with violence, responded with nonviolence? If you don't know the rest of the story of the Freedom Riders and you want to know fuller who the Freedom Riders were and what they did for America, I want you to do some research today. Just go onto your computer and look up Freedom Riders. Watch a video, read some information, and remember what Reverend Jackson teaches us. Your mind is a pearl and you can learn anything in the world. Listen, friends, before we go, I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of things happening in the world today that are violent in nature. And a lot of people are trying to figure out how do we respond to the violence in today. Well, at the Rainbow Push Coalition, we still believe that a nonviolent response is the best way to change things, that love still prevails, that love will still win, that prayer still has power. And before we end this segment of what youth ought to know, we also want you to know that you can be inspired by history and that you can look at what we've done in the past and see how it is applicable to what is happening today. A part of what happened before every civil rights march is people got together, they prayed, and they sang, and they planned. We may not be able to get together physically right now, but we can pray together. And there's a young boy of whom I'm very proud, who is a participant in the Push Excel Oratorical Society, who wants to pray with us before we go today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's now center ourselves as Bradley Holt prays with and for us.
Let us all pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing the families that were impacted by the shootings in Texas. Please continue to give them strength to heal. Thank you for covering my family and all of the children in the world. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. God bless you.
Recent tragedies of mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas, have again placed the issue of gun control front and center of the public discourse. The balancing of the right to bear arms, for which there is wide interpretation of meaning, and the right to restrict access to weapons as a compelling government interest seems to be more complicated than it need be. The interests of advocacy groups like the National Rifle Association continue to sway the opinions and actions or inactions of members of Congress and state legislators across the country. As the Supreme Court is prepared to issue a ruling on New York State's gun control law, there are many who are concerned, even fearful, that this court will further loosen the restrictions on access to guns in America. There has been much historical fighting over the meaning of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. What is clear is that the arguments prove inadequate when it comes to the implementation of policies that will protect innocent lives. Proponents for loose gun laws argue that more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens will make us safer, while those supporting reasonable restrictions and limitations on gun access argue in the opposite, that not everyone who is age qualified is functionally qualified to carry a weapon that can take a life. The fact that there have been more mass shootings in America than days in this year is an indication that the political hot potato of gun control versus protecting innocent lives leaves wanting even an ounce of credibility. The fact that the Supreme Court is posturing to limit the agency of a woman when it comes to control of her own body in the name of protecting the unborn, but will not find the moral courage to justify reasonable limitations on access to military-grade weapons on the streets of America, speaks not only ill of the Supreme Court, but labels the court and our government as hypocrites in the efforts or espoused efforts to protect innocent lives. Those who, by virtue of the responsibilities of their respective offices, won't muster the moral courage to protect the most innocent amongst us. They hold great responsibility for not only the carnage that has occurred this week in Texas, but also for the residual harm that will be felt in families and communities across this country for years to come. It boggles the mind that we can spend more energy on regulating what we can't see in a woman's womb and will turn a blind eye to what we can see, that which continues to happen in classrooms, the violent, deadly violation of the womb of dreams and possibilities for our children in plain sight. There's so much more work to do, and we must do this work together so that the deaths of innocent children, our children, in schoolhouses and classrooms across this country will not be in vain. Call your congressperson and senator and tell them you want reasonable gun reform and universal background checks now. Call 202-224-3121 and ask for your congressperson and senator by name. Do it now.
PushExcel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, PushExcel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and PushExcel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the PushExcel program. You can also text the word PushExcel, that's PUSH, EXCEL to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Good morning, everyone. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday Morning Forum, and I am Tim Lee. Listen, I have a very special announcement for anyone who's graduated from the 8th grade, 12th grade, received an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or any other degree from a higher educational institution. We want to celebrate you at the opening of our International Rainbow Push Coalition Convention starting on June the 18th. On Saturday, June the 18th, from 10 until 12, we are going to have a baccalaureate program that is going to honor any graduates from 2020, 2021, and of course this year, 2022. If that is you, you can register for our convention at www.rainbowpush.org, or you can scan the QR code that's on your screen. We want you to RSVP so you can be treated like the VIP that you are. We're also preparing a special digital presentation for this event. So if you have pictures of you that you have taken for graduation, pictures of you in your cap and gown, or even pictures that you have in your college paraphernalia, we want you to send those pictures to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. Again, this is a call for pictures that you can send to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. Before I go, I want to let you know that we want you to join the Rainbow Push Coalition at the student rate. That student rate is just $15 a year. If you're interested in doing that, go to our website and sign up today, www.rainbowpush.org. That's my time, friends. I can't wait to see you in June. And let me end the way I always do, and that's with the words of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. If your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it. Until next time, I'm Tim Lee.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word PUSH, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.